Welcome to the Guelph Real Estate Report podcast with your host and Guelph Realtor, Ryan Waller. This podcast is designed to provide information for those buying and selling homes in the Guelph area to make the process more informative, fun, and a little less stressful. Now, on with the show.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Guelph Real Estate Report podcast. This is episode number 40. My name is Ryan Waller, and I work in Guelph Real Estate with my lovely wife, Beth. It seems like forever that I've been here. In fact, it's only been a month, but I'm used to recording these a little more frequently. We took time in July to revamp the written or blog version of this podcast that you can find on our website to make it a little more visually appealing, a little more attractive, change up the color scheme a little bit, and put some more charts in there and just try to improve the overall experience online. So we did add a few things on that blog version. We took some away that were a little more confusing or didn't really add value. And hopefully if you go on our website or search Guelph Real Estate Market, you will find it and enjoy it. And if you have any feedback on it, let me know. I actually recorded this episode number 40 last week, but I decided to hold off a little bit longer because there was some information that was coming out of the government as well as the Toronto Real Estate Board that I thought I wanted to wait on so I could report on it. And I'm glad I did because there's some useful information in both of those pieces. What you're probably here for is a summary of how the real estate market in Guelph did for July. So I'll give you some insights into July as well as how that impacts us on a year-to-date basis. And July is typically a pretty slow month. July and August are times when families go on vacation, people get away with the warmer weather, and so naturally people spend less time doing real estate related things. Buyers decide they're just going to hold off for a little while because they are going away. Sellers decide that maybe they just want to take their house off the market or wait until September because they don't want to have their house clean and ready to show all summer long. And especially in this market where you can go a week in between showings and to have to rush to get your house back in order again for a showing can be stressful. So naturally we see a drop off. And one of the things we were looking at for July was how much is that going to drop off? And those of you who have been following along know that this year has been falling below last year in every single month of 2026 versus 2025. And is it going to get worse in July? And how did it compare to June? So July is an important month for a variety of reasons. The really interesting thing, and probably the key takeaway from all of this, is that July this year was almost, it's a rounding error, but it was almost the same number as June. And those of you who follow along with the seasonality of real estate know that June and July are two totally different months. They are polarizing months in that June is typically the wind up of the spring market and July is the start of a very slow market. And traditionally, starting in July and going all the way into December, sales volumes slowly decline to the bottom in December. But July of this year in Guelph Real Estate was 143 sales, and June of this year was 148. I would say that is almost the same. I had to go back in my sales data and take a look at the gaps between June and July in prior years. And the gap is usually, the drop-off is usually much steeper from June to July. So to see July come in at those really strong numbers, although it was still below last year, but it did come in very strong compared to June. Either maybe June was really weak, I don't know, but it was really interesting to see how close those 2 months that are usually very opposite came in this year. And you may be saying, Ryan, what does that even mean? And I think I can tell you that it means that we are starting to see signs of some stabilization. And whether that means it's going to continue or not, I have no clue. I can tell you that I think without any compelling reason for prices to go up, that we are going to see prices probably slowly decline into the balance of 2026, probably well into 2027. So those of you who are considering taking your house off the market and putting it back on next spring, I'm not sure it's going to work to your favor. I guess it depends on the house and the location and the price point, but we are not in a market that is showing any signs of rebounding anytime soon. July did have an average price of $756,000 across all types of homes. That is about the mid-range of what we have seen in the past number of years. It was lower than July of last year, but it was slightly ahead of July in 2024. If you take a look at how that rolls up on a year-to-date basis, overall, we are rolling up at $766,000 on an average price year-to-date in Guelph, which is down 4% versus last year. If we take a look at the number of homes sold in July, as mentioned, it was 143. It was down about 15% from last year. And if we take a look at where that puts us on a year-to-date basis through July, this is the first year in the ones we have recorded over the past 8 years that we are below 1,000 sales at this point in the year. Every other year we have been. This year we are at 894. So that's about 150 less sales, or 13% less than last year. So all the metrics are down in the market. Number of homes sold, average price, dollar volume, everything is in a downward trend. And if you're a buyer, this is a really great news story for you. If you're a seller, yes, we've talked about this, you're probably frustrated. One of the improvements we made on our market data blog is specifics for detached and condo / townhomes. And I won't bore you with all the details. You can find that on our website. But I can tell you that the average price is being led down more so by condos, and the overall number of homes sold is being led down faster by detached. So there is no one segment here that is doing really well. There's no segment that's insulated from declines. Everybody's contributing in one way or another to the overall declines we're seeing this year. As I mentioned earlier, July and August are 2 months where buyers are slow to look at houses and sellers tend to take their houses off the market. And so both of those things are happening at the moment. Sales in August are really sluggish at the moment. We're talking about 2 houses a day. There hasn't been a lot of activity. Sellers, there were 625 houses on the market mid-July. We are now at 593. So there's been about a 5% decline in inventory despite the fact that sales have been happening. What we'll be looking for in August is a continuation of what we saw in July, which is a pretty strong month compared to some of the other months we've seen this year. If we don't get that, I'm not actually too concerned because that is the way August is supposed to be. What we're looking for after that is a September between Labor Day and Thanksgiving, which is usually considered the second spring market. It's sort of the last hurrah for anybody that is going to be selling to try to get the largest pool of buyers available, because buyers also come out in September. So we do get a rush of activity there. It does a blip, like I said, between Labor Day and Thanksgiving, and then slowly comes down from there. If I had to add some commentary into the end of this outside of the data itself and let you know what it is that that Beth and I are personally experiencing in the market, we are in a situation where there are a number of buyers. In fact, we are working with a number of first-time buyers. Some of them have listened to our podcast or watched our videos or been referred to us by someone else. However they come to us, they are interested in getting into the market. They're often well prepared. They've had their pre-approval looked after. They know what it is they want, where they want to live, and they are ready to go. However, they are in no rush. They are not in a hurry to do anything. They're going to go on vacation first in August and think about it. And if the house is still available, great. If it's not, they say it's not meant to be. They are going to wait and see if anyone else is interested first, it's a perplexing real estate psychology move. Or they're maybe waiting to see if the market agrees with the pricing and potentially wait for a price decrease if it gets to that point. Really, it's because there's a lot more selection out there. And so buyers feel that if they can't get the price they want, or they happen to miss out on this house because they've been waiting too long, there's always going to be another. And what we're seeing from a seller's perspective is that they are becoming more and more willing to negotiate, more and more accepting of the current market. And although they don't like it, that the price of their house is going down slightly, or that their neighbor accepted a certain price that they never would have accepted, they are starting to accept it a little bit more, be a little more open to it, and understand that if they really do want to sell their house, they're going to have to accept market value. I know it's a hard thing for sellers to accept the current market, especially since the last prior years, 10 years or whatever, prices have been rising. And now we're in a situation where with every new listing, it could potentially become a comparable for you as the seller at a lower price. And more competition means lower prices. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I don't see inventory dropping and buyer demand increasing, which is the recipe for a higher price. I just don't see it. There's no compelling reason for it. And on the note of average prices and slight declines, Beth and I started a 4-episode series on our YouTube channel that talks about neighborhood specifics, everybody's favorite topic. And I thought it would be worthwhile to do because looking at an average price for the most part to most people doesn't mean a lot. They want to know specifics. How does this impact me? How is my neighborhood doing? And so we've broken it out into 4 pieces. We've already written and published one of the episodes, the neighborhoods that have done the best or had the highest average price increase in the first half of the year. We're also going to take a look at the ones that offer the most opportunity, that have had the biggest declines so far this year, and which neighborhoods have had the most transactions, which I think will surprise some people. There are some neighborhoods that have just rocketed up with the number of available listings, and others that you would think would have more have had very few listings. And the last one is what neighborhoods have been stable. Where is there just regular transactions happening? Is there a neighborhood that has regular transactions happening? Yes, there are, and we will outline them in our series. So if you don't follow us on YouTube, give us a follow. We'll be doing those over the next 4 weeks. As always, if you have any questions on the Guelph real estate market, you can get in touch with us on our website. You can book an appointment, call us, whatever you wish. BethAndRyan.ca. Talk to you soon.